Welcome to the third webinar in the four-part series Essential Skills in the Workplace. The webinars are guides to implementing essential skills training programs in your workplace. The focus of webinar 3 is training. The series provided you with all the information and tools that you'll need to begin an essential skills training program. The webinars provide a step-by-step process from a workplace needs assessment to training evaluation. Webinar 1 provided an overview of essential skills. In it, we looked at a case study that illustrated the benefits of building essential skills proficiency levels of all apprentices and employees. Webinar 2 helped you to identify your organization's essential skills needs as well as those of individual apprentices and employees. This webinar, Webinar 3, is about implementing essential skills training. It also will give you guidance on evaluating your essential skills training program. The final webinar, Webinar 4, will discuss what to do to get started and introduces you to some tools and resources to support you in implementing an essential skills program in your organization. In Webinar 1, we developed an understanding of essential skills. They are considered essential because they are the skills that everyone needs to work, to learn, to function in our society. They are the foundation, the building blocks for learning other skills. We explored these 9 essential skills: reading, document use, writing, numeracy, oral communication, thinking, working with others, computer use, and continuous learning. If you feel you need a refresher on these skills, go back to Webinar 1. It gives you detailed description of each essential skills and workplace examples that demonstrate them. In Webinar 2, we learned that the first step in developing an essential skills training strategy is a workplace needs assessment. This assessment gathers information on organizational and individual skill strengths and skill gaps, training needs, and training priorities. A workplace needs assessment does 2 key things. It finds out whether gaps in essential skills are affecting your organization's performance, and it identifies the skills your organization needs in order to thrive and the individual skills apprentices and employees need to develop. The results of this assessment suggest the essential skills program and activities your organization needs to undertake. In Webinar 2, we also discussed how to do an individual training needs analysis. This analysis helps apprentices and employees to identify the skills they need to develop and, just as importantly, allows them to recognize the skills they already possess. When a positive and supportive environment is created for the training needs assessment, apprentices and employees are more likely to participate in learning opportunities. In assessing their needs, it is important that they are given an opportunity to examine their own strengths, build self-confidence, and explore options for reaching their goals. Through this process of exploration, apprentices and employees are in a better position to make informed decisions about their next career development steps, which may include both essential skills upgrading and job skills training. In Webinar 2, we noted that this simple table can be used to track performance issues, essential skills gaps, and training priorities identified during the workplace needs assessment. When you have documented the results of your workplace needs assessment and individual needs analysis, your organization's needs become clearly apparent, and you know which groups or individuals are affected. This data gives you what you need to decide training priorities and objectives and to select appropriate training and activities to develop the specific essential skills your organization needs. If you want to refresh your understanding of these tools, have another look at Webinar 2. Now that we have done a quick review of the essential elements of Webinar 2, let's move on to Webinar 3. Webinar 2 provided a worksheet to help you identify your organization's objectives, needs, and priorities for essential skills training. For example, objectives might include improving productivity or reducing errors. Needs might include improving reading skills for all apprentices and employees. It noted that prioritizing training would consider such things as the budget required, the cost to the organization of ignoring essential skills training needs, and the impact the training would have on organizational goals. Now that you have conducted an essential skills workplace needs assessment and individual training needs analysis and identified the essential skills training goals, needs, and priorities, you are ready to develop the training. Webinar 3 builds on information found in HRSDC's Taking Action, a Guide. It presents a 7-step process for developing and integrating essential skills training in the workplace and a series of tools and tips. Its web location is noted on the bottom of the slide. Part 1 of this webinar looks in greater detail at a variety of training options, and Part 2 provides guidance on evaluating training. In Part 1, we'll talk about all the options in building an essential skills training program, including formal and informal approaches to learning such as the classroom, on-the-job training, and online learning, and we'll look at delivering it in-house or by outsourcing. We'll discuss implementation strategies that take advantage of community resources, networking, and partnerships. And finally, we'll help you to counter some of the most common objections to implementing training programs, and we'll arm you with some tried and true tips to help your workplace adapt and integrate essential skills training. When you begin to build your essential skills training program, you'll encounter a lot of options. You will need to select from different training approaches, techniques, and delivery options. There are many resources you can plug into. Once you have considered the options available, you can begin to develop a training plan. Both formal and informal approaches to training are used to improve essential skills in the workplace. Formal training usually involves structured activities that have specific learning objectives. Classroom training is a good example of formal training. Informal training is less structured. On-the-job training, where you learn by working with coworkers, is an example of informal training. Workplace training choices vary widely. At one end are ready-made or pre-packaged courses with content and activities pre-planned to deliver specific outcomes. Courses aimed at high school diploma or computer literacy are examples of ready-made programs that are commonly included in an essential skills training program. They are often textbook or software-driven and the only option available to earn the recognized credit. Customized training is tailored to individual and organizational needs. Learners collaborate with educators and others throughout the learning cycle. For example, an instructor would adjust learning activities for someone who finds that writing in the workplace course doesn't meet his or her needs to develop report writing skills, or modify math training to accommodate those working towards different levels of certification, or adapt document use training to include actual workplace documents. It's tempting to adopt ready-made essential skills training because it's so easy. However, it is important to carefully assess whether they meet your specific training needs. Customized training not only focuses on your precise training objectives, it also contextualizes the learning to your workplace and your learners. A workplace may have both custom and ready-made training operating simultaneously. For example, some apprentices and employees may be working toward a high school diploma, while others are engaged in group decision-making and teamwork activities, and still others are pursuing training in trade-related skills. Formal and informal training approaches can be applied to a variety of training techniques. Let's start by defining the most common training techniques. Classroom training involves a group of learners and is led by an instructor or expert. This is a structured and therefore formal training technique. Classroom training can be on-site or off-site, may be fully or partially funded by the employer, and may or may not be conducted during work hours. E-learning refers to online or CD-ROM courses. This is considered formal training. E-learning can be self-paced, meaning that learners manage the training themselves, or it can be facilitated by a tutor. On-the-job training, as you might guess, occurs at the job site and involves hands-on learning of tasks, skills, or procedures. It is formal when the tasks and skills to be learned are clearly identified and learning follows a specified sequence. It is informal when, for example, apprentices and employees ask co-workers to demonstrate how to do something. Mentoring takes place when one person teaches another how to complete tasks. It's formal when the organization coordinates the pairing of more skilled or experienced employees with less skilled or experienced apprentices or employees. It is informal when two people independently decide to form a mentoring relationship without the facilitation of their organization. Self-study is self-directed independent learning without direct supervision. It is formal when learning activities are structured and linked to formal training objectives. Otherwise, it is informal. Self-study may be initiated by an apprentice, employee, or the workplace, and may take place at work or on a worker's own time. Learning materials may be obtained by the apprentice or employee through a professional association or through the workplace. Employers may provide reference documents or manuals to support apprentices and employees' essential skills learning. These can be in print or electronic format and can include tips or reminders, reports, articles, charts, posters, user manuals, and reference guides. Choosing appropriate techniques for your Essential Skills program depends on a number of factors. Among them are the scope of the program, number of apprentices and employees enrolled, training techniques being currently used, the level of support for education and training, and the availability and proximity of educational institutions and educators. In choosing a training technique, take time to evaluate your workplace circumstances so that you can choose the most appropriate techniques for your workplace. This table reminds us about what to consider when selecting classroom training as a training technique. Classroom training is a good choice when a large number of apprentices and employees require training, or when you want to give them opportunities to share information with each other, or give them a chance to practice job tasks and get immediate feedback. Consider these factors when thinking about classroom training. It may cost more than other methods. Work time is lost to training and possibly to travel. Cost. Will you pay for the time lost, or will the training be on the apprentices or employees' time? Can you incorporate essential skills training into existing training, like safety training? Workplace circumstances and considerations for other training techniques we have discussed in the webinar are included in the HRSDC guide Taking Action. It's quite possible that your training solution will use more than one technique. Essential skills training can use in-house resources or external expertise. If you don't have essential skills training expertise in your organization, you will need to find an external trainer. If you decide to develop and deliver training in-house, here are some tips to customize training for your workplace. Make a list of the occupations in your organization. Identify the occupational groups that require essential skills training. Find the essential skills profiles for the occupation. If you can't find the exact profile, you can use one for a similar occupation or use a job description. Review the profiles to identify the tasks and complexity levels that employees and apprentices are expected to perform. Develop training activities that help apprentices and employees practice those tasks and allow them to progress from less to more complex tasks. Also, make sure the training activities closely resemble apprentices' and employees' expected work tasks. Select real workplace materials to support the training activities. These might be manuals, policy documents, or charts. If you do choose to hire an external trainer, remember that the most critical factor for successful training delivery is the trainer's depth of experience in delivering essential skills training. Whether training is in-house or outsourced, the trainer must also be familiar with your organization. To deliver training effectively, trainers must understand the culture, strengths, challenges, and operations of your workplace. They must also have some knowledge of the trainee's work and be familiar with blended learning. Blended learning is a term that means using several different learning techniques to better integrate and consolidate learning. An example would be using on-the-job training to support classroom training. Make sure you also know how participants' progress will be tracked and evaluated, and how the training provider will ensure that participants' personal information is kept confidential. When working with an external trainer, start with a clear contract that specifies the roles and responsibility of the trainer and your workplace, and important details such as the cost, time frame, and location of the training, targets, and deliverables. Build a training plan that outlines how the work will be carried out. Provide the trainer with all the appropriate workplace-related documents and materials. Communicate with the trainer regularly, and actively monitor the progress of the training to ensure it's meeting targets and deliverables. In addition to private trainers, a broad variety of resources are available to deliver or enhance your essential skills training program. They include business associations, governments, and unions. The federal government offers skills enhancement and business and community development programs. Provincial and territorial governments offer programs through their labor or immigration departments. Culture-specific training organizations are available and effective. You can also explore partnering with other organizations whose training needs are similar to yours. When you try to get support for training from management, some of these objections may arise. These are the four most common ones. There are not enough trainers, coaches, and mentors. There is no time available for training. We're too busy and can't spare anyone for training. It's too difficult to fit training into employee and apprentices' schedules, and it costs too much. So how best to counter these? Well, on the first point, not enough expertise, if there are not enough trainers, coaches, and mentors, there are solutions. To build capacity, you can have your internal trainers do train-the-trainer workshops with suitable staff or use external resources to work with internal trainers. For the second point, if management says there is no time to develop and deliver training, you can suggest integrating essential skills training into existing training, such as safety, technical, or customer service training, or delivering training in short segments over a longer period, or find existing external essential skills training materials and resources that you can customize for your workplace. And finally, consider whether informal training strategies like on-the-job training are appropriate. If the concern is that it's too difficult to fit training into employees' and apprentices' schedules, you might discuss integrating essential skills training into existing training, setting up a learning center for employees and apprentices, e-learning, doing training in small groups, one-on-one tutoring, on-the-job training, or on-the-job mentoring, providing training during downtime or less busy periods if you experience fluctuations in levels of work activity. When cost is an issue, you can suggest integrating essential skills training into existing training, propose possible partners and networks, see the resources that we mentioned earlier, propose customizing existing external training materials for your workplace, and calculate the costs of not offering training. Point out that essential skills training can have a number of positive impacts, such as reduced safety incidents. The next step is to create a training plan to address the essential skills needs of a group or an individual. The guide, Taking Action, has checklists and a worksheet you can use to develop and consolidate your training plans. It will keep you organized and can be useful when presenting your ideas to apprentices, employees, colleagues, or management. Use a separate worksheet for each group or individual with different training needs. Before you finalize it, confirm the process for getting it approved so that you are following established procedures and providing the documentation your organization expects. There are several factors to consider when developing your essential skills training plan. Who is the training for? What are their specific learning needs? Which approaches and techniques will you use? Will the training be outsourced or in-house? What is the training time span and frequency? And will training be voluntary or mandatory? And how much will it cost? We have already discussed some of these learning needs, the essential skills to be upgraded, training technique, whether classroom, e-learning, and so on, and delivery, whether training is in-house or outsourced. Over the next several slides, we will look at the other components of your training plan. A target audience for essential skills training could be all apprentices and employees, all members of an occupation, or just some of them. The time needed for training depends largely on the essential skills being targeted and the training technique you choose. Consult with essential skills experts about the time required. Be realistic about the progress and rate of progress that an apprentice or employee may be able to achieve. Upgrading essential skills takes time and improves with practice. The frequency and duration of the training might be half a day, a week for 6 weeks, or full-time for 2 days. It might be a half an hour integrated into non-essential skills weekly training sessions. Your plan outline should note the date of training if known, or the approximate time needed to develop and deliver the training. Training can take place during or outside work hours or during lunch hour or in the evening. Be creative. There are a number of options regarding participation. Training can be mandatory for all employees and apprentices, or only those targeted for essential skills training. It can be recommended to those in a targeted audience, but voluntary? It can be voluntary, but successful completion may be linked to career progress. It can be voluntary to all employees or apprentices, or only those specifically targeted. A tip for success? When considering your participation policy, motivation and attendance are likely to be higher if participants feel it is their program. They are also more likely to take responsibility for keeping the program going. There should be no stigma attached to attending the program and no threat to job security if workers do not want to participate. How you communicate the program and training is critical. As is the case for the time required for training, there are also a number of options for funding training that will affect the budget you'll need. Fees and other costs related to the training can be fully or partially reimbursed. You must also consider whether you will incur any temporary staffing or other costs while participants are on training, and what needs to be done to cover that. For example, you may have to apply for an increase in budget and/or hire temporary staff. When you've worked this out, add to your training plan outline cost per employee and apprentice and the estimated total cost of the training for all participants. It is critical to the success of your plan and of the training to get support from key stakeholders such as apprentices, employees, management, trainers, and other groups such as unions or individuals who can influence the success of the training. One important way to achieve this is to include them in the planning process. Build stakeholders' awareness about essential skills and its benefits. Establish a workplace essential skills committee involving all stakeholders, and use positive messaging about the program and intended objectives to build support. When you create opportunities for stakeholders to make meaningful contributions, you are building a common vision. Planned communication throughout the planning process and training delivery will build and maintain support, create a stronger program, and identify any bumps in the road early. For additional tips on gaining support from apprentices, employees, and managers, have a look at Step 6 in the Taking Action Guide mentioned earlier. Here are some helpful tips for integrating essential skills training into the workplace. Build essential skills training activities into existing training sessions, such as technical and safety training. For example, you can develop essential skills training activities that are appropriate to the training sessions. You can also do essential skills training activities during workplace events, like meetings and team building sessions. Customize existing essential skills training by using your own workplace forums, reading materials, and examples. Encourage apprentices to work with co-workers to complete their training activities. Their different skill strengths will help them to learn from each other. Support the development of personal development plans. Such plans can include any developmental activities such as taking responsibility for a staff meeting or taking a course. Provide an opportunity for apprentices and employees to review and develop the essential skills required for work tasks. For example, review formulae and the steps to calculating a measurement and how to find and interpret information in a code book or manual as part of learning workplace tasks. Provide appropriate incentives for skills improvement. Be innovative. Recognition of learning and successes are important motivators. Keep in mind that success will breed success. Make sure your workplace materials are clear and easy to use. This is an easy way to make complex job tasks simpler to understand. Make sure there is a structured way to document and distribute how-to knowledge so that employees and apprentices have easy access to the knowledge they need. Provide opportunities for apprentices to share and reflect on their learning experiences. Provide support to learners and promote a culture of learning. These are a sampling of the things you can do to show that essential skills training is valued in your organization. Encourage employees and apprentices to ask for training. Promote learning plans. Offer incentives. Reward success. And build time into work schedules to accommodate essential skills training. In Part 2, we will talk about why evaluation of your training is important, the steps to take when you evaluate your training, how to decide what information is needed, and how to collect and evaluate it. Evaluation will help you understand the strengths and weaknesses of the program and identify what worked well and why. The goal of evaluation is to examine past performance and develop future plans of action so that you can improve the quality and relevance of your training. Evaluations should be designed so that as much as possible is learned about the training experience and outcomes. You can act on what has been learned, and the experience of the training can be shared with others in the organization. To get meaningful and useful data, you have to choose evaluation tools and procedures that will reveal it. You need information that relates specifically to the objectives that have been set for the training and clearly shows what has been accomplished and what still needs to be done. Ideally, the evaluation process should be planned when the Essential Skills training program is being established. Once training goals and objectives are in place, you can develop an evaluation strategy that measures the attainment of these goals and objectives. The first step is to decide what it is you want to find out, who the information is for, and how it will be used. Is it information for business owners, managers, trainees, trainers, or clients? Do you want to know whether trainees are satisfied with the training? Do you want to know whether training has had an impact on productivity? The purpose of the evaluation helps you to determine your information needs and will influence the evaluation's complexity and cost. The next step is to decide what information you need to get these answers and which information is most important. Then think about where this information resides and how you will get it. Finally, you gather the data and evaluate it. To illustrate some of these steps, let's look at one common purpose for an evaluation: to improve training quality and relevancy. You want to find out trainees' reactions and perceptions of the training so that you can give feedback about the training to trainers and curriculum developers. The information you need might be trainee satisfaction with the training and how useful they think it will be on their jobs. If these are your information needs, ask yourself, who has this information? Obviously, it's the trainees. A method to get this information could be through a questionnaire right after the training. You might ask whether they were satisfied with the various aspects of the training, what areas are in need of improvement, and how they plan to use what they learned. The Taking Action Guide provides suggestions for other areas to evaluate: gains in knowledge, skills, transfer of learning to the job, impacts on the workplace. The guide also suggests appropriate questions and data collection methods for each of these areas. These are a few more of the common questions that management may be interested in having answers to. How many have participated? How much is it costing? How have apprentices and employees benefited? How has the organization benefited? How do the goals of the training support the values of the organization? And are there any groups of workers who need the program but are not participating? For example, women, second language speakers, shift workers, workers in a particular department or area. And is there anything they can be doing to remove barriers to that participation? You can ask the same or similar questions of learners, supervisors, and instructors. It is recommended that you ask a mix of structured and open-ended questions. Structured questions produce statistics, and open-ended questions encourage your respondents to freely state what is in their minds. Although it is difficult to quantify open-ended questions, they provide more substance and may give you important information you hadn't thought to ask. Evaluation information can be collected during the training, as it is concluded, and in post-training follow-up. The most common ways to collect evaluation information are one-on-one interviews with various stakeholders, focus group discussions with participants and other stakeholders, course evaluation forms completed by participants and other stakeholders, review of internal data, and observation of job tasks. Additional ways to monitor training could include portfolios of work and activities completed by participants during the learning activities, oral and written progress reports that include instructors' assessments and participants' self-assessments, regular interactions to identify achievements and needed improvements. Conducting a formal evaluation at the end of the training provides valuable information to guide future program development. It can determine whether training was relevant, useful, and personalized. The positive feedback you get from the evaluations will help you to justify continued investment in workplace training. Learners may prefer to give you feedback in individual interviews, while supervisors and instructors may prefer to meet with you in group discussions. Mixing information sources and collection methods gives you more balanced information on which to base your evaluation. Some methods for collecting evaluation data are more effective in certain situations than others. For example, the interview method of data collection enables discussions of a variety of topics. It gathers information from particular groups such as training experts, apprentices, trainees, supervisors, and/or managers, and can be done by phone or face-to-face. The interview method works well in these situations. You do not have a lot of people to obtain information from. You want opinions, for example, on whether apprentices' skill levels have improved, assuming you haven't done a pre or post test. It is flexible and allows in-depth discussion. Because they are one-on-one, interviews work well when the subject matter is complicated or the topic is sensitive. The Taking Action Guide provides this kind of information for other collection methods, such as focus groups, surveys, pre and post tests to assess learning, reviews of internal data, observation, and expert panels. When you have assembled and reviewed your data, you can judge the results on criteria such as these. To what extent did the training fully address the objectives identified during the workplace needs assessment? Was the training material and level of difficulty appropriate? Was the training provider effective and engaging? Were apprentices and employees able to apply what they learned in the training to their jobs? Make the most of your results with these tips. For example, get feedback on the evaluation results from key decision makers and those involved in training design and delivery. Make sure the results are widely and easily accessible. To do this, ensure the evaluation results are available to key decision makers and everyone responsible for training, development, and delivery, and widely communicate where the evaluation results can be found. Monitor the quality of evaluation results over time. Be clear about what is expected from the evaluation, have guidelines in place for high-quality evaluations, and keep benchmark examples of previous evaluations that were highly satisfactory. And lastly, provide results in a user-friendly format that is clear and has sufficient detail. Some of the factors that will make your training evaluation successful are respecting the privacy of those contributing information, positioning evaluation as a positive, valuable tool for improving training outcomes. Make sure that everyone understands the purpose of the evaluation and how it will and won't be used. By testing your methods to make sure they are giving you the information you need. Providing clear and relevant and reliable information and procedures. Encouraging all to be frank. Enabling a wide range of people to participate. Given the constantly changing schedule of many workplaces, be flexible enough to revise your schedule to accommodate your information sources. Again, being part of the Essential Skills program planning from the outset. Using several methods of gathering information from various sources. And finally, using the findings to shape funding guidelines and future initiatives. In listening to the webinars and using the Taking Action Guide, you have made an important step toward the development of an Essential Skills training program. After implementing your program, you are likely to experience gradual improvements in your organization's performance. Monitor the results to see if you experience these or similar performance and business benefits. Improved motivation, higher productivity, lower turnover, apprentices and employees who embrace change, fewer on-the-job accidents, and an easier time meeting business goals. We hope that this webinar has helped you to understand what is involved in planning essential skills training for your workplace. Once your Essential Skills program is in place, you are encouraged to continue monitoring essential skills to ensure apprentices and employees are well equipped to succeed. This is especially important when there is technological or organizational change that affects the essential skills required. Such changes make additional assessments or training necessary to help apprentices adapt and function well. In closing, here are once again 2 essential sources for essential skills training guidance. The Taking Action Guide from HRSDC's Office of Literacy and Essential Skills, on which this webinar was modeled, and the Essential Skills website that offers a multitude of tools and resources. This completes Webinar 3 on Essential Skills Training and Program Evaluation. The 4th and final webinar in the series provides a review of various tools and resources that can support you in implementing essential skills training in your workplace. For more information on implementing essential skills in your organization, please contact the Canadian Apprenticeship Forum. Contact details are noted on the slide. Thank you for being with us for this presentation. We hope you have found the information valuable.